First of all, I should probably say that, I'm not an expert on day-to-day corporate governance. I'm the guy you call in when you want to either buy something or you want to sell something. To me, corporate governance means good business, first and foremost. And so my role, coming in as a lawyer, is to assist people like Matthias, or in this case it was slightly different, it was the other way round. I actually represented Studio Moderna on the sale of a stake to Matthias Fund, to basically look at a company and see how the corporate governance works. Now, I think later on in the discussion we'll come on to distinguishing privately held companies and looking at state-owned enterprises, and there I think we have a big distinction to make, and I think we'll have to talk about some of the tensions which exist between state-owned enterprises, the political angle, and basically good corporate governance, and how that has developed in Slovenia. And I'm sure there are many more people here who are far better experts than I am. But first and foremost, as I said, it's about good governance. It's about good management. It's about doing good business for the shareholders of a company. And hence, when we come in as lawyers, as you know, we would look at the legal aspects of that, how the business is run, how decision-making is done, plus also what is actually, what forms part of a business, what is actually part of the assets that are being bought. And having been in Central and Eastern Europe for a long time now, we've come across, many surprises that are a legacy of the history in Central and Eastern Europe. You'll look at a manufacturing business and suddenly you'd say, well, that's funny, why do they have a hotel on the coast? And investors coming from the outside don't expect this, and so you need to kind of hold their hands and explain to them why that is. So there's the due diligence aspects of it, but there's also just the general kind of good corporate practices that are involved, and obviously that's something that in our due diligence we will focus on, going through the materials of the company, looking how decision making was done. Okay, so those are the aspects that I look at, especially with respect to privately owned companies. That's what I tend to focus on. But I think the other aspect, and this is really the tenor of why I think it's important for Slovenia to focus on this, is that ultimately, good corporate governance is not a luxury. Okay? It's not a hobby, it's something that you have to focus on, and it will catch up on you eventually, okay? Because one day you will have somebody like me on your doorstep either telling you that it's going to be very difficult to sell your company or to basically deal with shareholder claims, or basically buying your company, okay? So you really are going to have to focus on this, and of course I think now in the financial crisis this will give an impetus to Slovenia and many other companies as well to kind of look in their backyard and focus on how to do better, because consolidation is on its way. This is the lifeline for people like me. I was here, selling Druga Kolinska for Istrabens. Consolidation is coming, okay? There are people in other countries who are looking at your businesses. They're going to come, so be prepared and take it seriously.
What happened in Slovenia after the privatization is that we gained really concentrated ownership of most of our listed companies. There, in most of the cases, over 60% of them are controlled by major 3 or 5 shareholders. What means that our corporate governance, considering listed companies, is pretty much different than maybe in some other countries, in European capital markets, where we have very dispersed ownership. We have strong CEOs, and when shareholders are not happy with how the company is governed, they sell the shares. In Slovenia, there is a lack of this just going out of the companies. If you are a major shareholder, you try to govern the company and you have all the right position to do that. And that means that if you don't like CEO, you can change the supervisory board, and the supervisory board changes the CEO. So it's quite a different approach. So we are pretty active in corporate governance, more than in other developed capital markets, considering how you get out of the companies or you get in. We are in a position where owners or shareholders are strong. So What we need is also strong supervisory board members and strong CEOs, so it must be a kind of harmony on this strength, because corporate governance is about the power, and you must not misuse the power, and corporate governance is about the set of rules, how you will not misuse the power that the system gives you. So I believe that we have supervisory board members as a reflection of our ownership structure. So if we have a weak supervisory board members, we have the one that our owners, or like our owners want them. So I believe that must be a kind of equilibrium between these strengths. So I believe we need a strong CEOs. I believe we need a competent, strong supervisory board members in this case.
Maybe to start with Slovenia and this corporate governance in Slovenia. I mean, I think with all due respect, and I think I can say that because I'm Slovenian and I used to work in Slovenia and was active in most of the bigger deals which happened up until 2005 in Slovenia. I mean, talking about corporate governance in Slovenia is an oxymoron because it assumes that there is such a thing as a corporate governance in Slovenia, which I think there isn't. That's one thing. The other thing is you have to take a step back and really analyze how the Slovenian business model has been working for decades. And there are certain principles of the Slovenian business model which clearly affect a non-existence of corporate governance. The key two or the key three terms of this business model are that the tops and senior positions within the economy are based on the negative selection. So basically it's not the merit which drives the career of the people, but it's the political connections. And those political connections are not based on merit. That's one thing. And then the second thing, which is probably even more important, is that there is no such thing in Slovenia as economic and professional independence. And if there is one of these two things, so the people who are financially independent are not professionally independent because they own their financial independence to the people who made it happen. So this is the frame within the Slovenian economy works. So once you have this kind of a frame, it's almost impossible to have a corporate governance. Now, is this a very specific thing to Slovenia? No, it's not. I mean, we've seen this across the Central Eastern Europe. The question is how the countries respond to that. And now we are to the question about Romania. So basically, Romania has been having the same setup as Slovenia. However, given the economic hardship and given the fact that the business model as such of Romania has been under severe attack in the same sense as what we see today in Slovenia, where Romania was fully dependent on the external financing, at some point in time the Romanian politicians were strong enough and were basically pushed into a corner where there was no way out other than take on the foreign asset manager to bring some kind of a corporate governance that, you know, to bring what we consider a Western approach to managing companies to the state-owned companies. Because whatever I said previously about Slovenia is just valid for the Slovenian state-owned companies. I think that the Slovenian private companies are a completely different ball game, and they can be compared to the best peers anywhere in the world. So that's a different part of the question. So from this perspective, our experience in Romania has been, I mean, we were lucky and good enough to get the mandate managing the biggest Romanian sovereign fund, which is called Fondul Proprietatea, and it's basically the same thing as what we have in Slovenia, where if we were to put the KAD and SOD, so Slovenian Restitution and Capital Fund together, that's basically the same thing as what we run in Romania. And our experience, we've been running this now for more than a year and a half, has been very good in the sense that it's a very tough job. We are basically focused every day with huge challenges. However, what we managed to do is really start turning around the paradigm of this negative selection, financial dependence, and professional independence. And this is starting to show results. We have been firing, I don't know how many suits against the state, against the managements, against the supervisory board members, because basically the things were run the same way as what we see now in Slovenia, and these things are starting to show results. So the bottom line of our experience in Romania is that what we see in Slovenia and what we as Slovenians take as a given situation, which cannot be changed. It can be changed. The good news is it can be changed. There just has to be a political will to basically take the same route as what Romania did.
You mentioned external audit and internal audit as different topics, pretty different, pretty separate. I will start with external one. It's a tough job. I can write a book on the topic of why we shouldn't even be doing audit in Slovenia, why it's so difficult and so on and so forth. Some examples, we used to have the worst audit law in Europe. I'm very proud of that. This is how the auditing profession in Europe found out about Slovenia. We produced the worst audit law draft in Europe, and the Big Four was seriously considering leaving the country. And actually had to convince them to stay because I want to live in this lovely place. You know, there's other negative things, of course. For example, the auditors are still largely appointed by chief accountants, to be very honest. The audits are not always independent, as you know, and so on and so forth. But today I would rather be optimistic and say, over the last couple of years, I do see a positive trend. The fact that I'm here today is a positive trend. The fact that people talk about audit, you know, I'm speaking about internal audit almost every week somewhere. People at least want to know. People know that we have a problem with such a strong corporate governance tool like audit. And as a consultant, I can tell you, once you realize that there is a problem, it's half of the solution. I fully agree with Matjaž when he explains the problems of corporate governance of Slovenia. But again, this is half of the solution. Today, there is this understanding at all levels. I believe that even people that run the state companies at the very top, I think they know what the problems are, which is the big advancement comparing to 3-5 years ago. I don't know if those people committed to a change. That I don't know. But I think the thing is moving slowly. I see a lot of interest, much more than 3 years ago, in the topic of internal audit. Every time, you know, we do training for supervisory board members. Every time the room is full. Every time people are interested, they're listening. 5 years ago, when I was speaking about independent internal audit, people thought I fell from the moon, you know. Now they want to know. Why? Because the theory of shock therapy that Matjaž is promoting, when people started losing hundreds of millions of euros here in this small country, then they started thinking, well, maybe there are some solutions. And I think this understanding that audit, either external or internal, is a solution, is here now.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely an interesting topic. Just one thought in this regard. I mean, clearly in Slovenia, what we see in the last 2 years is just amazing, basically, or actually the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, in terms of how negative the things are developing, and clearly this is just a result of what was done previously. So, but what is really for us, I mean, or for me, incredible is when I see what's discussed in Slovenia and what kind of things are published and what kind of a acting there goes on in terms of the things which happened in the past and nothing can be traced. I mean, this is incredible. I mean, we've seen the cases like we've seen in Slovenia, in other countries, particularly in Russia, for example. And the beauty about the audit is that if you are able or if you are willing to deploy a forensic audit, you can track down anything. So if people in Slovenia say, we take on hundreds of millions of loans and we don't know where the money did go, they lie. And if the supervisory boards are saying we are not able to trace it down, they are not doing their job. Because it's a basic job to appoint a forensic auditor, preferably one which is not based in Slovenia because of the independence, and trace that down. And once this will start happening, the things will start to change. Other than that, it's just games and it's just pretending and it's just show for the public. I mean, these things are very simple. So at the end of the day, it's really about the willingness, whether you are willing to do it or not. That's the bottom line.